Okay, brother. Now,
Yes.
we are going to
Mhm.
look at the second category of the direction bias.
Yes.
Okay, brother, let's continue. So let's look at the second category of this direction bias,
Yes.
which is called, hope you understood
Mhm.
what you the time based, yeah? Did you understand it?
Yeah, yes, I understand the time-based.
Okay,
Yes.
so now we are going to look at the what we call the structure based direction bias. Structure based structure 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 based structure based direction structure based direction bias. And now this is where or this is a situation when we have, it's not about the sparing, but it's called a structure. Now this is where we have like a
Okay.
bigger, this is where like, let's assume that we are on a weekly time frame. Let's assume we are on a
Mhm.
weekly time frame and you happen to see price dropping like, in a bearish way like this one, like this, forming aggressive bearish candles like like this. So when you happen to see something like this, price forming aggressive candles like this, and you want to take an opportunity of this trade, sometimes you may even happen to see price forming this last candle, it may see it forming wicks. You may also be having bullish candles, bullish candles like that, moving in an aggressive way. Now, this is mainly found, let's assume that this is mainly found on these constant time frames, are the weekly and the monthly time frame, because sometimes we happen to see price forming or moving in an aggressive way. Now we want to know how can we join this trend, because now we know that now the bias is now bearish. Okay, now
Mhm.
because now price is moving without leaving any nearest area of liquidity, we can take an opportunity of. So what do we do if we happen to reach in such a situation? You know, my wife is here cooking, so sorry about the what you're hearing in the background.
No, it's okay, man.
So now we know now our price is going to continue either moving bullish in a bullish way and also bearish in a bearish. Remember, don't have any area of liquidity. So what are we going to do in this situation if you want to join the trend? So if you want to join the trend, what you're going to do is you're going to go and mark or to mark this last part of this. Let's assume now this is a weekly time frame. Let's assume now we are on a weekly time frame. Let's assume we are on a weekly time frame. Know what I'm doing? I'm organizing these notes, this class,
Yes.
that in my next month, if I finish with you, because you're the only person who has already applied for this new new
Yes.
new update. So I'm just
Okay.
organizing each and everything. So I'm going to organize all the videos we learned together in one group, so that everyone who pays just
Yes.
come, just pay, join the group and watch the videos.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's assume that on a weekly time frame, we are having such kind of a trend or such kind of a move. Oh my, you're disturbing me now. Let me go. So this time the background. Okay, now we can continue. Now I say, you know how
Actually, I wasn't hearing any noises.
can you hear me now?
I'm saying I didn't hear any noise.
Pardon?
So it's okay. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so now we want to join this trend. So what we're going to do, we are going to mark this last part, only this last part, maybe around this area here, and also mark this part around maybe that area. The reason why we see these weeks on this lower on this weekly time frame, it means that when we go now to the 4 hour or the time frame that coordinates with the constant time frame that we have used here, we have used the weekly time frame, meaning that when we go to the 4 hour, we are going to be seeing a pullback. So now this pullback is going to be going to the nearest validation and invalidation point. Remember, when you go now to the when now we go to the when we go now to the 4 hour, we shall be seeing what we call a trend. I told you there is a difference between the trend and the direction bias. Okay, so
Bias.
now the direction bias here is currently bearish, and we have seen the price forming multiple bearish candles, meaning that it took 1 week to form this candle. It took the second week to form this candle. It also took the third week to form this candle. Meaning that when we go down to the 4 hour or time frame that goes into the constant time frame, we are going to observe the trend of the market, which is also going to be bearish. The one that is going to be bearish, we shall be seeing price dropping on the 4 hour, forming lower highs and lower lows, lower highs and lower lows, lower highs and lower lows, lower highs and lower lows. So what are we going to do? We are going to mark the last validation and the invalidation points or invalidation levels in the 4 hour time frame. And here is what you're going to do. We're also going to come to the 4 hour and observe the trend of the market, and we shall be observing price forming highs and lows, highs and lows. So what are we going to do next? What we are going to do is we're going now to mark the last validation and evaluation level. So this week you're seeing on a weekly time frame is meaning that this week is giving a pullback toward this area of liquidity. Okay, the week that you're seeing on the weekly time frame means that it's giving a pullback. The weekly is giving back to the situation one area of liquidity, meaning that you're going to mark the last validation and the validation levels. So meaning that when you're dealing with a structure-based direction bias, mainly what do? We follow what we call the time frame coordinations, time frame coordinations, and time frame coordinations. What's called time frame coordinations. I also follow what we call from coordinations. And what else do we do when you're using the structure based? We do what we call uh the validation, the V2V analysis. It's called the V2V analysis, validation and validation level. And our entry models are always the liquidity engineering, okay, and
Yes.
liquidity trips on these areas, and liquidity trips. Okay, when you're dealing with the validation, the invalidation, when you're dealing with structure-based direction bias, that's how we do get, or that's how we do get an entry based on how price has been moving. So we do consider the way how price has been moving on the constant time frame before deciding anything else altogether. That's how we scale
Yes.
in those entries on the validation, using the validation and the invalidation levels. So now here, when you're going to the 4 hour, what you're going to do is now you're going to go to the 30 minutes after confirming the validation and the invalidation levels. You're now going to go to the 4 hour, or you're now going to go to the 30 minutes and look for the liquidity engineering that happened around this area, that is happening around this zone in a bearish scenario, and also look for the liquidity engineering that happened around this area in the this in the this or the liquidity flip that are happening around this area, and take your entry with ease. So when you take your entry, it means that you're going to also here sometimes you don't have a definite target. You don't have a definite target. Remember, price has been dropping massively. You don't have any area of liquidity you're targeting. You just don't have a definite targets. It means that you have to exit this trade when price performs a shift point, maybe in the situation time frame, the 4 hour when we are dealing with the weekly, or we have to exit this trade when it performs a shift point in the daily time frame. That's when you exit this trade. But when you enter, when price performs a structure-based direction bias, it means that when you enter, you may not have your exit. You just need to be wise and know how to scale in your profits and know how to survive with this situation, because we exit this trade that is structure-based, based on the shift formed in the situation time frame, because they drop massively. Are we together? So that's
Yes.
how we do use the structure based direction bias and then scale in our entries. Okay. So now let's see some examples on how to get entries based on this structure based direction. So you want to become a full-time trader.
Yes, man.
You know, for me, I became a full-time trader even when I didn't have capital. For me, all I
I,
wanted was
I
what I wanted
I
was
was I was during the COVID times.
oh, it was okay. So let's see. Let me just remove this. You know, it's always better when you're teaching someone to look for a live example. Live example. So
Yes,
that's
yes.
this
I was
someone.
actually looking forward to that
Yeah,
because I need to see where I usually go wrong.
yeah. Because some of the guys, those guys always have those recorded videos that don't even have a live example. So now let's first check.
Yeah.
So this one had an area of liquidity. So we are looking for a live example. You know, now this is a wicked time frame. Let me just show you a bit. You know, now when the price is dropping massively like this,
Mhm.
hmm? So this is how the structure like this looks like, meaning that you don't have any area of liquidity left for you to consider. Okay. Now, sometimes what we have to do is come and look at this last patch around this area and maybe mark this week here. So what you're going to do when you're going to have the 4 hour, you're going to be looking for the last validation and the invalidation points that will help you hold your entries. Now, when you look here, we have this as our last validation and invalidation point. So let's see if this example could work. So when you mark at this as your validation point, you have now to wait for price to go and use the 30-minute liquidity engineering. The 30-minute liquidity engineering, all the liquidity flip and scale in the entries. So let's see if this could. So we have this reactive liquidity engineering. So let's see if that one worked. So that's how the structure based works. Let's see if this one worked a bit. You know, there's someone, I watched some of the videos from Stoker. He always
Okay.
has what he already looked at, what he already found, yeah? So he's teaching what he
Yes.
already found. So which gives people
Yes.
hard time.
You observed. You observed that.
Yeah, it gives people hard time for them to understand, because you already are prepared what you're going to show them. But so you can clearly
Yes.
see here, you would have had a good intraday maybe this like so 4 hour. Here you would have had a good intraday set up according to the risk. You know, now you say don't risk more than 15 pips per entry. Okay. So here would be a nice entry from there. I told you here on these setups, we don't do a bit of kind of a swing. Remember, we don't have a definite target as you saw here on the weekly time frame. Sorry, as you saw on the weekly time frame, we don't always have a definite target that you're going to exit from this point. Are you together? So that's how
Mhm.
sometimes we do these structure-based direction bias. Okay, so you don't have a definite target that you're going to exit
Um,
from. So whenever you do enter these entries, you may do intraday
mhm.
or you know how to exit. Because now here, because now this market is uncertain, no one is 100% sure that the price is going to do what. But if price had already performed a shift point here, maybe price would have come to this area of liquidity.
Yes, I was going to ask you that question.
Yeah. So it means that if you enter that position, maybe you would have entered and risked few pips from that area there. Then maybe your exit point should be around this area. Now, sometimes you have to set like to take profits or if you take profits and exit accordingly, because now sometimes we may be expecting price to drop till this level and price fails to exit that level. But that's how we do.
Yeah.
You can clearly see price almost gave a good amount of 60 pips before it dropped up. So that's how we do sometimes intraday structure-based direction bias. So whenever you find it on the current market, make sure that you use it accordingly and make use of your any opportunity given. So let's see another example. If we can see another example on this same pair. So here it's also
And
another thing. And look here, see here we had this move. We didn't have any area of liquidity according here. We didn't have any area of liquidity here. Okay. So now sometimes we have now to come and look at this last part. You can just remark like that and also mark this week. Okay, to help you know when you're going out with the situation time frame to know how you're going to start from. So now when you come here, you can guess now this was your last validation and invalidation levels. That was your last validation and
is it okay,
invalidation.
Mary,
Yes,
let me ask you, is it okay if you just go
but
back to go and check the last talk?
your voice is a bit down, bro.
Oh, you don't hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing it, but a little bit down.
Ah,
So here you can clearly observe the massive move here. Okay, so whenever you observe price having a smaller wick here, a smaller wick, you see this wick here, mean that we are having a small pullback. So this pullback is going to be taking us to the nearest validation and valuation level in the situation one time frame. Okay, whenever you observe something like that.
that is after the candle has closed, right?
Yes.
That is after the candle has closed.
Yeah. So meaning if we would
Okay.
have had a candle closure here, it means that now price has broken the structure, but we didn't have a candle closure, meaning that we're going to go and look for the last validation and valuation level inside that area there. So when we went down to the 4 hour, we observed this as our last validation. Okay, let me remove this. We observe that as our last validation and invalidation. They mean that now we had now to move on to the 30 minutes to see if price can come and do target our liquidity engineering. Maybe if it's here, okay, if we see there. So maybe sometimes this kind of setup do give intraday, because now we don't know where price is going to exit from until it performs a shifty point from that situation, that situation time frame, the situation time frame. So price scale, listing trigger. Maybe we have used a flip level. Let me see. Scale. Let's go to the 4 hours so that I can speed up this motion process. The price just came and went all the way up. Maybe here on the first entry here, we would have used a flip level inside this level, because I know if you don't get the liquidity engineering, you have to get a flip around that area inside there. So that's how Sometimes we do this structure based. Yeah. Let's see if we can get this liquidity flip. The first flip will be here, but it's outside there. Maybe on the 5 minutes, they can't give us that previous data. Okay, let's try. Let's try to guess the 15 minute. The liquidity flip will be maybe around this area here. Around this area on the 5 minute liquidity flip may be around that area, because when you see price, as price was approaching the upper side, it left this area unconsumed, and it came and closed below these areas, meaning the price can also come back and test this level before it continues to go down. Hope you know how it works.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe price came to that liquidity flip there and consumed. The reason why we teach this is that we have those people who want to trade like four pairs, two pairs. So when focusing on those only two pairs, mean that you'll be able to use this structure base now. Yeah. So the flip level happened around that area, and you can clearly see you made the risk a small amount. So you that liquidity flip will be seen clearly on the 5 minutes, though we didn't have previous data, but we had a structure, mean that you see it clearly on the 5 minute, and you would have taken that entry based on that. So your exit point was supposed to be, you wouldn't hold it for so long. Reason, you had now to set multiple targets. Okay, you had to set multiple targets because now you have now to confirm a shift point from the 4 hour when you're using this structure
Wow.
based. You can clearly see your exit point maybe would have been this low. Your exit point should have been that low here, and you can see when price start there, because remember price performed a shift point here. So whenever you use this structure based, case you banked almost 43 pips, meaning that you would have exited your first target here, because already price had performed a shift point here, meaning that you would have exited maybe from this area. Your first target is maybe you enter from this area. Your first target may be here, second target here, third target, and your fourth target is always going to be this low. That's how you use the structure based direction bias. And that's why I told you, when using this structure based, you don't need to hold it for so long. Okay, you can get a see. Don't need to hold it for so long, because now we don't have a definite area of liquidity from these constant time frames. So let's see another example. I saw something good also on this GBP USD pair. So now we can clearly see this on a bullish scenario here. On a bullish scenario here. So you can clearly observe that the price has been dropping massively from this leg here. Though we have this as the area of liquidity, but observe these last two weekly candles. Mean that it will take a time for price to come to this area of this weekly edge of liquidity. But when you look massive, this candle, and this candle, okay, there's a massive move, meaning the price may be aiming higher. So what we do is now what we have now to come and mark this low, this high, and also half of it, and also mark half of this candle, this weekly candle, and also mark half of this weekly candle. Now what we have to now go to the 4 hour and look for the last validation and validation level, which was definitely here. Okay, price closed above that high, meaning the last validation and validation level could be this low here. Okay, yeah, meaning that now we had now to move down to the 30-minute and either look for the liquidity flip or the liquidity engineering. Whenever you see price forming the liquidity flip or the liquidity engineering, it means that you have now to go with the liquidity flip, because now the liquidity flip is more powerful than liquidity engineering. Okay, the liquidity flip is more powerful than liquidity engineering. So this would be our entry maybe on the 5 minute. But if you don't want to do the refinement, you may go with this visible liquidity engineering. This was the visible
Yes, the
liquidity
visible one.
engineering.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you the same.
But sometimes for me, when I don't have that previous data, I just need to look here because now sometimes this is a liquidity engineering from the lower time frame. Let's see if we can have it in 5 minutes. We can't. Let's check 15 minutes. So let's just say 15 minutes and see. So you can clearly see it's always visible on the
Oh yeah.
15 minute. So that's why sometimes I can truly guess. But since we are learning, you know that this is the learning process. You know what to do. So we have now to play price and see. So you can clearly see price just came and triggered at that liquidity engineering I thought how I marked from the 30-minute here. Can you clearly see? Because it was the liquidity
Yes.
engineering that we had to do the refinement. But even if you entered from this one that was visible, sometimes we do look for those sniper entries, but
The
the risk
sniper.
will also be here. The reason why we do the refinement, but the risk will also be outside. Yeah, 24 not, but you had now to move down to the 5 minute and do the last refinement and can see price triggered nicely and gave us a small risk. Now here, now you're not going to hold for so long. You just need to put multiple targets. But you can clearly see
Yes.
price did perform a shift point and leaves adds an area of liquidity. I told you, whenever price performs a shift on the situation time frame and leaves no area of liquidity, there are high chances for price to continue moving upper. Meaning that here, on the 4 hour, let's go to the 4 hour. Here on the 4 hour, price didn't perform any, sorry, price didn't perform any shift, didn't perform any shift point, meaning that we had now to hold our buys till we
You
see
see a
price
shift.
performing a shifty point with an EDP. In case you would have gained almost 600 pips with that easy process. So let's look at more examples. Maybe we can use this one pair. We can use this one pair, or you can also try other pairs because someone may say, "Hey, you're doing an example on one pair." Yeah?
Yeah.
Someone may say you already organized them, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah,
let's
it's true.
let's also look at Euro NZ and see. So let's see. We had this as our,
I like this player.
so we can clearly see price was dropping massively. These big candles, this big candle. So now we also observed again, also observed a low here. So now what we have to do, we have now to mark this low, how to mark this low, and then mark half of that, mark half of that candle. So now we have now to move down to the 4 hour and look for the last validation and violation. So here we have two, but now this is where price performed a closure here. Oh, this is where price performed a closure there. So this could be, you can mark this as a validation point, but I always do tell my students that whenever you see something like this, price may tend to extend higher. Okay, sometimes price, no, this validation point is valid, and also this one is valid. But so long as to be on the safer side, you have now to extend at least this validation level to this high because it's price may liquidate this one and tend to use that one. So now had to come and when we use this one, would have gone down directly today. Let me first cut. Because sometimes this is why I told you also you need also to mark the other on upper because sometimes price may do extended
Mhm.
wicks, may try
Yes.
to path to cross above this invalidation point with a wick. So to be safe or to be on the safer side, you can extend your invalidation point to the other level. So we can clearly see you could have observed this liquidity flip inside this area here. So the liquidity flip around that area and take your entry with ease. So price came triggered. Even if you do go down to 5 minutes, you definitely see the liquidity engineering that would have happened from that area and take that sharp sniper entry. So we can't identify it, but we can definitely go with this paradise. It's called a paradise. We shall look at them. But the liquidity engineering on the 15 minute, on the 5 minute would be here, on this candle here.
Yes.
Okay, because when you see here, we had like some kind of a pullback here. You see, a pullback here. It means that we are having an area, we are having a candle around that zone. So that's how we do this structure based direction bias, and you can clearly see that banked a good amount of pips for this day, for this setup here. Only small risk.
For intraday.
Yeah, good for intraday. Let's see. So it was good setup. It almost gave 60, 80 pips. Let's see how far it went. Finally, it dropped, and you would have banked your 150 plus pips. Now remember, our target is always the low, where we had this pullback. Okay, so this is where the pullback happened. From that's always our final target. That's always our final target as we continue dropping. So you can clearly see you would hit your final TP with a risk of 15 pips. We know now we do 15 pips risk, not more than that, to be safe. 15 pips risk, and you can clearly see how this structure based works properly. Okay, so you can definitely have to exit from the area there. So let's look at it rain until it paid a lot. So let's look at one more example, or more examples in this last 6 minutes. So tomorrow we shall be able to look at the other two categories of the liquidity or of the direction bias. So let's look at one more example in bullish scenario. So let's also have this one. Let's take. We also have this scenario here. Have a lot of scenarios. We have
Can you
this.
do this on the daily time frame?
It's always better with it's always better
With the
with
weekly?
the weekly and the monthly. So here,
Okay.
always better with the weekly, because they are going to provide the intraday. So it means that anything lower than that is going to confuse you. So you can see we had this high weekly time frame. So we also have to come and mark at least a bit half of this candles to help us identify the nearest validation and validation level on lower. So here we had now to come and look for the nearest validation and validation level. So here this one was washed, meaning we had now to come and occupy nearest one, which was this one. It was the nearest one, meaning that we had now to also come down and refine this to see if we have the liquidity engineering based on so we have a lot. We have a liquidity flip, we have the liquidity engineering, so have this, but you can also take an opportunity of this liquidity engineering from this area here and see if price comes to tackle that area. So we also have the liquidity flip, which is around this area here. Let me mark it a blue line. So now in that case, I told you if the liquidity flip holds more than the liquidity engineering. How the liquidity flip holds more than the liquidity engineering. But in some cases, you need to set two limit orders. When price triggers the liquidity flip, you'll be good. Or when price triggers the liquidity engineering, you'll also still be good. So let's see if price came. Let's see if price came and triggered that move. The price didn't come to that move, maybe. The price didn't come to that move. So there will also be a time when you miss the trades. Let's see. Let's see if price came. Okay, price should have come, but watched it out. Watch this area of liquidity. Watched out. So not every time that it will be a winning trade. Not every time will be a winning trade. Not every time will be a winning trade. So we also have to come and look for another setup based on that. Okay. So based on that, maybe we would have come and look for the liquidity engineering that would have happened around that area and take an entry. It is because now you can clearly see here. This was our last high, and this was supposed to become maybe mark this. Let's see if we will have the last validation and validation level here. So not every time is going to be a winning day. So sometimes you also
Yes.
you also lose. Also lose. So we don't have a nearest validation and validation level, but maybe we could go with this. This was an area of liquidity. So sometimes you won't be getting what you're expecting. We trade what we see, not what we expect. This is one of the rule of the strategy. We trade what we see, not what we expect. Not what we expect. Price would come to that area there and do an entry based on the liquidity engineering, maybe on the if we had to do the refinement, would do the liquidity engineering maybe from the 30-minute. Now we can't get that previous data, but maybe we can spot liquidity engineering around there and do take our entries with. That's how we use the structure-based direction bias and take a good amount of intraday setups. Also, if possible, we can also swing based on what the situation one time frame provides. So tomorrow we are going to be looking at the liquidity direction bias, the liquidity-based bias, and the last time and the other day we shall be looking at the fundamental direction bias and how to trade in. It means that when you're looking at the fundamental direction bias, you shall be learning how to trade the news, what to consider when trading the news. Are you together?
Yes, I saw you posted something on news.
Yeah, what to consider while trading the news. So this could be the last example. You can clearly see you could also spot those big moves based on that. So that's how we do this structure-based direction